Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 5:30, and I will call this regular work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. Ladies and gentlemen, our meetings, we go directly, work sessions, we go directly to our agenda item. We have new people around the table, and we want our viewing audience, our residents, to know who's around the table, so we're going to go around the table and introduce everybody. I'll go this way.
Michelle Collins, City Clerk.
Dan Gustafson, City Council.
Vince Workman, City Council.
Tanya Schwartz, Police Chief.
Matt Smith, Deputy Chief of Police.
Jenny Rhodey, Deputy City Manager and CFO.
I am Bethany Brewer, Strategic Initiatives Director.
Looking for my phone. I think maybe they're just on.
It's on.
They're on.
Oh, all right. I'm Robert Thomas here from the Axtel Group. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Todd Axtel, President and CEO of the Axtel Group.
Daryl Jacobson, Natural Resources Manager.
Bridget Ratzak, Sustainability Coordinator.
Andrew Kilpatrick, Assistant to the City Manager.
Jeff Thompson, Community Development Director.
And walking in, and happy birthday to the birthday boy.
Timing. Sorry I'm late. It wasn't because of my birthday. It was work.
Let me smell your breath.
So introduce yourself, birthday boy.
Dan Keeley, Burnsville City Council.
Kira Schultz, Burnsville City Council.
Hugo McPhee, Deputy City Manager.
Greg Lindberg, City Manager.
Elizabeth Couts, Mayor of Burnsville. Okay, welcome everybody. The first item on our agenda this evening is Partners in Energy Update, and that's Daryl Jacobson, our Natural Resource Manager, is presenting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Up there, there's, do we have the?
It's coming.
There we go, thank you. Well, first, we did quick introduction, but Bridget Ratzak here is a new Sustainability Coordinator. She started at the end of July, and although I have been kind of leading the ship here in Partners in Energy since March, we are kind of working through a transition where hopefully, once we get through the first piece, which I'll be talking about tonight, we'll be transitioning into her kind of being our lead staff person for this, so she's here tonight to help me out.
Well, welcome, Bridget, and
Thank
welcome
you.
to the table.
All right, the next slide here that we have is to kind of give a background on, where we've been. So this program is set up between Excel Energy and Partners in Energy, kind of with that, and they take cities on to work on their energy action goals. And so we came in mid-January to City Council to get authorization to submit an application to be part of this program. And so shortly after that, we got council approval. We submitted that application, and it was accepted, and we've been working on the program since March. And so the first step that we did was to look at forming an energy action team. And that team consists of representatives from all the utilities in Burnsville, Burnsville staff, residents, and obviously the Partners in Energy folks, their staff as well. So can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. Oh, is it there? Thanks. Sorry.
You can control your destiny, Daryl.
I will now.
Yeah.
Look out now, huh?
Instead of waiting for somebody to do that, you can control it.
And so this just kind of shows where we've been going over the last 4 months. So we did start the plan, as I mentioned. We'll develop this plan. There will be an implementation plan, and then they have continued implementation on here because it's a 2-year program, as you'll see. But really, the goal is that this plan and program will continue, hopefully long after that, because we've got, as you know, a lot of goals in our sustainability plan. There we go. Okay, just a few seconds delayed. So this is the Energy Action Team. Just a quick picture to show everyone. I want everyone to get a little recognition. I've been really impressed with this group. I've been involved in a lot of kind of collaborative groups that have staff, other professionals, and residents involved. And this has got to be one of the most active and vocal groups that I've been a part of. And so even though we're only about halfway done, I'm really encouraged at the level of participation that we've had. All of the utilities that are in Burnsville, so obviously Excel, this is kind of their program, but we have had a representative from Dakota Electric, the co-op, and CenterPoint at every one of these meetings, and so it really is all the utility groups coming together to work with our staff and residents to come up with the best energy action plan that we can.
It's a great group of people, and having residents involved, and also the multifamily people involved, that is very great, good.
Yes, and we did, in the beginning, when we were doing the recruitment process, we were trying to get, the broader community represented in this team, and I think we've done that, like you said, all the different folks there. So the first thing that the Energy Action Team did when we came together in the first meeting was to work on creating a vision statement. And so you'll see that here. Burnsville strives to make energy use cleaner and more efficient by engaging the community in effective energy actions. This plan will help make Burnsville a better place to live and preserve our resources for future generations. And so it was a fun process to come together and get, 20 people together to come up with this. And so this will kind of be the leading statement for the Energy Action Plan when we finalize it. And so, as you'll kind of see as I go through this, we started very broad and have been working more narrow as we go through until we get down to the goals at the very end of the plan and the actual implementation items and how we're going to achieve those goals. So the next thing that we looked at is what we're calling focus areas. And so there's a lot of different things you can look at when it comes to energy use and energy reduction, efficiency. And here in this first phase, there's too much out there to try and tackle all at once. And so we had like 10 or 12 items to look at, and then the group kind of voted and weighed in. We've had surveys with the group and other things, and boiled it down to these 5 items for the Energy Action Plan. Reducing energy burden, which essentially, in case people might not know, it is looking at the percentage of your income that goes towards your energy bills and things like that, and what is that percentage of your total income? And so that was something important to the group. And really, residential energy efficiency, business energy efficiency is still along those same lines, because hopefully if you're becoming more efficient and using less energy, you'll see that energy burden reduced over time. And then multifamily buildings and renewable energy. This really came out to the top. It seems like a lot of people really have a lot of interest in renewable energy right now and different ways to incorporate that into our plan. And so we took those 5, and now this is kind of where we currently are. We've had 3 meetings so far, and so as you'll see in the next steps, we've got a few things left, but this is the stage we're at now, and that's taking those focus areas and coming up with some strategies and themes that we can pull out there, ultimately leading to the goals that'll be in the plan. And we're trying to line up the goals with the sustainability plan so that when we're done, these 2 plans will work together. And so they will end up being 2 different documents, but we very much want them to be in harmony with each other and be focused on the same end outcomes, so to speak. So you can see there's not goals in here yet. These are just the strategies of how we might attack some of those focus areas. And so you can see collaborate with community groups, conduct outreach and education, organize funding resources and incentives, engage property owners, and encourage businesses to look at energy audits and assets. And so when we're looking at all these things, one of the pieces that I think we're really looking at is a lot of these utilities have a lot of programs already available that people just don't know about or may not know how to access them or all the benefits of them. And so that's obviously not tied into all these different strategies, but it is going, I think, to be a big piece at the end is how can the city facilitate the education component of this? How can we get people to know what's available to them already without any additional work, essentially, that these are out there to be taken advantage of? And so then looking at the next steps, we are going to have a multilingual open house on October 10th, where we're going to have interpreters both Spanish-speaking and Somali-speaking, and that will be at 2 separate times, so that there will be separate but same night, so that we can try and get some feedback from these other folks. The Energy Action Team, because of the way the program is set up and the materials available, really required English-speaking folks to be a part of that team. And so we wanted to have an opportunity for these other communities to be involved, because there is a lot of value in getting their input and seeing what some of their issues with energy are in the community. And then we're also going to have a community-wide survey that's going to go out in September, here probably in the next week or so, to engage the rest of the community, people that couldn't be on the Energy Action Team. We know it was a heavy lift that we were asking from folks if you were going to be a part of this team, because it was four meetings in the evening, multiple hours each time. And so for folks that couldn't commit to that, we still wanted to give them an opportunity to provide some feedback. And so we've got some questions kind of outlining things that we've come up with so far as part of the plan, and what are things that concern them about energy use, what things are they interested in, and maybe most importantly, how are they getting their information about energy in the community? Is it, how are they getting that, so that when we do get to the final stage, we can hopefully know how to do that education and outreach best, and how can we reach these different folks in the way that they like to consume the information. And the last piece here is just looking at the whole timeline about what's coming forward. And so we talked about the open house and the survey that's going out. We will have our last meeting with the Energy Action Team on November 1st. And then at that point, we will take everything that we've worked on together as a group, the community input, the open house information, and work on actually drafting that energy action plan. And we'll be incorporating the goals that we've developed in with these focus areas and strategies, and taking that into the implementation phase. And that's where Partners in Energy will actually lay out the roadmap, which is something I know I've been looking for. Our current sustainability plan has a lot of goals. If you've looked through it, it's a big document. We've got 10 different areas and many goals under each area. And this really focuses on 2 of those 10 areas in the sustainability plan. But the one thing that it doesn't do is lay out exactly how are we going to achieve that goal. So if we want to, reduce energy consumption by 7% by 2030, that's a goal, but it doesn't exactly lay the roadmap of how to achieve that goal. And that's what this document hopefully is going to do, is take those goals along with the community input and kind of give us that roadmap of here's how we can lay out. And so I do know that our implementation plan, I believe initially, we're going to try to eye up with 2030 being the end date, because that is where the sustainability plan kind of runs through. And we look at some of our benchmarking on energy use, that's where a lot of our goals are too, is get to this point by 2030, and then obviously we'll look at going from there and setting new goals. But that is where we're trying to match this plan up with that one. So, and that's really kind of about where we've gotten to this point. And so we just wanted to do a check-in, see if there's any feedback from council on the path we've been taking before we kind of go into the final steps here and hopefully get the plan wrapped up in November.
Anybody have any comments, any questions? Kara?
All right, so I have some questions that are coming in from some residents. Okay, so I have a question from a resident. They have a question. Will this plan include something that if they're putting their heat on or their air conditioning on, it turns that off on them without them requesting it to be done?
No. That's a volunteer program. I believe all the electricity companies, we have obviously 3 in Burnsville. They all offer that program. But it is a voluntary thing where you sign up. If you want to, you can sign up for it, and then I believe there's a rebate or there's some type of reduction on your energy bill. But this plan is not going to be requiring anything like that.
Okay.
Yep.
On the energy programs, do you have an example of what that would be. That was one of your focus areas.
So I don't have anyone here from the electric company, but I know there's like rebates and things available for if you were to replace a furnace or an air conditioner, that all of them have that set up where, and I know there's different kinds, right? Like a 90% efficiency, 96%, and the rebates change based on what you're choosing to replace on your property. And so I know on the Energy Action Team, there was, I believe one of our commissioners from the Economic Development Committee is on there. And so he had a neighbor or somebody that had replaced a furnace and AC and did not get the rebate. And so that's one of the emphasis is just to make sure that people know that these programs are available because there potentially is maybe a many number of people that are, whether it breaks down or whether they just need to get a new one for whatever reason, and maybe aren't taking advantage of those programs. So
Yeah.
that is one of the things we've talked about.
I know I signed up for the CenterPoint Energy Program. So on the yearly maintenance and then also on the replacement, equipment replacement. So they all have those programs. Yeah. Did you have, no? Anybody else? Did you have a?
questions, that's it.
Huh?
These are good questions.
Yeah.
And then this one's from me. Do you know what types of questions you're gonna be asking on the community-wide survey? Like in general, I'm not asking for exact language.
Yes, the survey has gone through our staff review about 90%. So we've got it
Okay.
pretty well figured out at this point. And it is focused on like I said, some of the stuff that we've already come up with in the Energy Action Team to get feedback on what has been developed so far. And then, as I mentioned, I know there's a question on how do you get your energy information in the community? And it lists several options of maybe how people are getting that. Bridget has worked a lot more on the survey than I have, so maybe you could, but am I on the right track?
Yep, those are two big pieces, and I think just understanding what folks want us to prioritize first, so that we get that broad view of of all the other folks in the community as well.
Thank you.
Question now, if you're already done.
Now I am done. I'm done with my list.
Yeah.
I've checked it
Would this
twice.
for energy reduction, would that include new windows and roofs in people's homes?
Yes, I'm looking at Bridget. I know
So-
there's different,
There are
construction
different
too.
programs.
It depends, yeah, and with some of the new federal funding coming out as well, there will be programs that folks can participate in depending on income level. So the hope with this plan is to put all that information in one spot, so it's a little easier for people to navigate as they go through the process, because it is a little difficult, but it depends on the specific item, and like Daryl was mentioning, the different ratings on your furnace, all of these things have different rating systems too, you might have to
We'll be
meet.
listing all the resources on our website then?
Yep,
People-
and-
Kind of a one-stop shop kind of thing?
Exactly.
And it will be changing. I know Megan Wack with Partners in Energy, who runs their program, and Bridget have talked about how there is going to be a lot of federal funding coming out for energy efficiency, renewable energy, all those types of things over the next, year. And so we are going to have to build a little flexibility into this because a program may come out that we don't even know about right now, that we'd want folks to be able to take advantage of, or the city or businesses in Burnsville. And so that will definitely be something, and when we look at the continued implementation piece and that bar I showed you, that it's going to be part of keeping up on what is all available through these programs for people to take advantage of.
Thank you.
So, Daryl and Bridget, our hub and talks about our renewable energy. Now, I know that what the data that we have here is only the city data, because the next part of the plan, as I understand it, is that now we're going to collect all of the community data. So once we have this moving, this is sort of the first step into incorporating all of the community data into our dashboard.
Yes, and this was a backup slide that I had. So I believe that these are so we have buildings and energy
You
and
had a
renewable
backup
energy.
slide, did you know I was going to ask this thing about the dashboard? Yeah.
So these are the two kind of categories out of the sustainability plan that these 5 focus areas really hit on. And so you can see that one of the goals under renewable energy is to have 7.5% on-site solar for residential and commercial. And so that obviously is not listing the city.
Yeah.
And that's by 2030, and that is directly out of our sustainability plan. You know, a 10% decrease in residential and commercial electric use by 2030 versus our 2006 numbers. And so this plan is going to be trying to match up with those, and then, like I had mentioned, lay out the roadmap of how can we get this. And really, you know, in the early discussions on those strategies, it is going to be to increase participation in the already available programs that the utility companies have. They're all volunteer participation, we'll make that clear, but it is to let people know about it and show the benefits of it, and hopefully get people to participate in these programs, and then that will in turn lead to the energy reductions and the on-site solar credits and those type things that are out there that can help people kind of reduce that energy burden and reduce their energy use.
Yeah, because we also changed our ordinance and allowed solar panels on roofs.
Yes.
And I think our, and I'm not gonna put Jeff on the spot right now, but I think we have, I think the whole area of solar panels and all of the equipment around all of that has really improved quite a bit from the beginning. So I think there are different kinds of solar panels. Some really look like they're very small, and some are the big areas. So one of the things that we're working on at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, because we did this when we worked on the Energy Efficient Block Grant, and that was a bipartisan effort, and it passed under Bush, but it funded under Obama, and that's how we had the $700,000 to go into our ice center for the geothermal.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so we got that. And then, again, under Biden, that was funded again, and we're going back to see that it gets funded. And I think there is, with the Energy Block Grant, it is direct funding to us, and it's like the CDBG. It's entitled funding, and it's according to population. So I think we're going to, when you said that there will be money available, there will be that direct funding from entitlement, but then there are also grants that we can help with residents to access some of those funding to help with their energy efficiency also. And I think this is really working on getting the dashboard to include our whole community, because we've done a great job with regard to what we're doing as an organization. And this is going to just accelerate it. I want to recognize Donna. Thank you for coming, because she's on the task force. Yes. And she always turns up when there's stuff that has to do with any task force she sits on to make sure we're doing exactly what the task force has been working on. So thank you for being here. Yeah, so that's great, because that dashboard will begin to propagate all of the things around. And so, thank you.
Yeah.
It's going to be a heavy lift, but I can't hardly wait to see your plan.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything else? Do you realize, Daryl, that what we're doing here, the first strategic direction for the city of Burnsville under Partnerships for Tomorrow was energy, environment and energy efficiency? And when I looked at all of this stuff, it's like you followed the same. The people still, and it was the people who did that one also. So it's nice so we see the continuation when we have our people involved in all of that.
Yes, we've got a very engaged group, and they've been doing a great job.
Yeah. I will go dig it up again. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Stay the course, doing good work.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is the police staffing assessment summary. Our police chief, Tanya Schwartz, is going to do the opening remarks and then introduce our guests. Did you have any remarks you want to make, City Manager?
No, Madam Mayor,
Linda?
I'll turn it to.
To our
Chief Schwartz.
Police Chief, Tanya Schwartz.
Thank you. Excited for the opportunity to be back with all of you. This has been a long time coming, so just as a reminder for people maybe listening in or watching, last year the council approved our request to find a consultant and move forward with the police staffing assessment, which was an addition really to after the city's organizational analysis. So kind of an extension of that to take that deep dive into, you know, what we're doing. We haven't had a staffing assessment in over 25 years, so it had been a long time coming in that regard, and we wanted to get it right. And so we engaged the Axtell group, and they have really taken a very thorough approach, been very pleased with them listening to where we want to go with public safety. How can we achieve that for our community? What is unique to us? And this is about staffing, but it's so much more than just staffing. We wanted them to really look at what are we trying to do? What are our community expectations? What are the department expectations? And how do we do the right things? So again, just very pleased, very excited to introduce Todd Axtell and Rob Thomaser, and they're going to give you a little bit more high level. The report you've received, there's a lot of information in the report. We're gonna hit the high level and then leave some time for questions and comments and make sure you get all the answers that you need, so.
So, Chief, when I was reading through the report, I remembered when we had that police master plan, and it was community members and consultants who went through that. And we used Clinton cops because we needed to bump up. We were deficient
Yes.
in our personnel, and so we needed the Clinton cops program to get that going. And so at the U.S. Conference of Mayors leadership team, we ask Congress to again look at how we can do that, because in reading this, it'll be really interesting for you to talk about, because it showed us our deficiencies last time, and it shows us our deficiencies this time. So I'm excited to hear about it. And
So thank you for that. Thanks for having us back. And then with that, I am gonna turn it over to Todd.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, council members, Chief Schwartz, Captain Smith, the community of Burnsville, and all of the department directors and
now,
cities.
Mr. Axtell, in your report, you said we needed a deputy. The chief is ahead of you. He was promoted to deputy.
Well, you've already, you didn't even need to hire me. You're already ahead of me, so.
And this is how we do things here in Burnsville.
So, you know, I was wondering,
Didn't
because
waste a moment.
I did see the Eagles,
Yes.
but I saw he still had
Yes.
captain on his name tag.
We're still working on all the details.
Change, yeah.
Congratulations.
We're just a
Deputy
little
Chief.
behind in administration to get that,
That's,
but the
Don't worry
chief
about
was
it.
way
Your
ahead.
nameplate.
that's really good to see. I'm really happy to see that, because that's one of the recommendations that we had, is that we have a deputy chief there. So this really has been a great opportunity for Rob and I. Rob, my business partner, and Rob served as assistant chief in St. Paul as I served 6 years as chief. We really did a deep dive. Rob did most of the internal workings of the department, and I did the community-facing part of this project. And your community, I'm really pleased to say, has had a large voice in how we have produced this report in a very uniquely Burnsville way, and we heard that from day one. I got to tell you, this truly is a great city with incredible leadership at all levels of government and throughout the entire city. Chief Schwartz has really pulled back the curtains. You know, in leadership, there's a leadership trait that is very rare, but probably one of the most important leadership traits is to be able to show vulnerability. And she's really opened the curtains and allowed us a really intimate look into the Burnsville Police Department. And we did need that unfettered access, and we got it to make sure that you were informed on how we recommend that you move forward. I often hear about the term uniquely Burnsville approach to city operations, and I've learned throughout this process that it truly is a part of Burnsville's DNA. And it's embedded deeply in everything that the city does that I can see from my point of view. We looked behind the curtains and found that the Burnsville Police Department is a great police department led by a talented and visionary chief who truly cares about its city, its department, and cares about results. We conducted a deep dive into the city, its police department, and the community, as I mentioned, and we analyzed mountains of data from internal to external sources. And the report is relatively large, but really it comes down to the 8 areas of focus that we concentrated on, consisting of leadership, training, patrol response, criminal investigations, employee wellness, recruitment and retention, expanded services, and quality control. And I'll talk a little bit about each of those areas of focus and what our recommendations are. During this assessment, we interviewed city department directors, diverse community members of Burnsville, business leaders, BPD leadership and officers. We conducted an employee survey and hosted 2 community meetings. And one thing's for sure, there's a deep level of support that the great work that the women and men of the Burnsville Police Department have in the work that they do, and that's earned support, by the way. The community wants the city to continue focusing on hiring officers who possess the heart for public service, who are educated, who are well-trained, well-rested, physically and mentally, culturally competent, respectful, and reflect the rich diversity of this great city. As a result of the data review and the interviews and using the 8 focus areas I just talked about, we made several recommendations based on the uniquely Burnsville lens. And here they are. Number 1 is leadership. The key findings, and you've already fixed it. The chief, I remember vividly when I became chief in St. Paul and the mayor asked me what I needed. And I said I need an assistant chief because it was my job to not only manage the department, but manage the community, try to help manage the elected expectations, and on and on. And you really need a day-to-day operator of the department. So congratulations to you for naming this deputy chief, who, by the way, is more than qualified for this position.
It's the chief
Yes.
who
Yeah,
made that.
the day-to-day operations, absolutely, and that's really what you needed. So I'll skip right by that one because you already took care of it. Number 2 is training. The key findings is simply put, more training equals less liability, less mistakes, and more trust with the community you serve. And I know, Mayor, you mentioned this last time, how important this training piece was. Currently, training meets the state standards, but does not go far enough to meet Burnsville's uniquely Burnsville standard and the community expectations. Community members want more cultural competency, more mental health, de-escalation, and other emerging training to help continue to evolve into 21st century policing. And the key recommendations out of this is to add 1 sworn position to the training unit. Number 3 is patrol response, and the key finding here is that Burnsville Police Department is operating at its 2006 staffing levels. The profession and community expectations have continued to change. Patrol officers need time to slow situations down. And you do that by having enough officers on scene, engaging the community at historic levels, following up on police calls, which help prevent future crime, being able to take time off when needed, improving wellness, and Mayor, I know you talked about that as well, increasing the amount of time to train, and the key recommendation, and I know this is a heavy lift, but it's over a 5-year period. My recommendation is to add 15 patrol officers to your department over the next 5 years. Number 4 is criminal investigations. The key finding is investigators do carry a heavy load. However, we simply don't have the data necessary to tell you if you need more investigators or if you need less, for that matter. So we're recommending a case management system that will allow your chief and the leadership team to have more information about the cases that are coming in, how long they are being investigated, solvability factors to help inform the department and inform your investigators to make them more efficient moving forward. So that was the recommendation, is case management system for number 4. Employee wellness. Burnsville Police Department uses and value the current employee wellness program. They really do. They use it a lot. They have embraced this program. Department staffing challenges make it difficult for officers to take time off for vacations, parenting responsibilities, medical needs, and illness alike. The key recommendation is focus on hiring, first and foremost, the frontline staff as soon as you possibly can. The quicker you do that, the more the health and wellness and the morale of the department will continue to grow. And by the way, morale on this department is better than I had expected. I really didn't know. I know it's a challenging time right now in policing in America, and the women and men of this department really do support the leadership of the department and the leadership of the city. Number 6, recruitment and retention. And it was interesting, just a couple days ago, I received from the Police Executive Research Forum this book, Responding to the Staffing Crisis, Innovations in Recruitment and Retention. This is the #1 issue facing police in America today. They put together a task force, and a matter of fact, Chuck Wexler, who runs this organization as executive director, writes, police agencies face no greater challenge today than recruiting and retaining enough qualified police officer to meet the rising demands and needs of our communities throughout the country. So the key finding here is what I had just mentioned, that we really need to focus on the shortages of police officers' positions in Burnsville, and this is throughout the state as well, by the way. And the recommendation here is to develop a multi-year strategy to really hone in on targeting the pipeline to policing profession initiative. So whether that's expanding the community liaison officer, and by the way, from your East African and Somali community, they really encourage the city to hire more community liaison officers from Burnsville who are less likely to go somewhere else to serve in other communities because they have ownership in the city that they reside in. So building those pipeline to policing initiatives, possibly helping pay for college tuitions. You need a 2-year degree to become a police officer in Minnesota. So there are opportunities there over a multi-year vision to be able to accomplish that. Number 7 is expanded services. And key finding here is the community values the behavioral health unit. Finding long-term solutions for people in crisis in our community is so important because it's the revolving door, call after call after call over very few people who are in crisis. So we were recommending 2 officers added to that unit to help people in crisis to really lower the demand for police services in the future. The key recommendations for the city emergency management function. I know right now we have a sworn, and maybe this has changed since the report, but a sworn member of the department who's doing emergency management work, and we recommend that this doesn't have to be a sworn position. It can be, because the sworn positions are so premium right now, this could possibly be a non-sworn position to oversee the day-to-day emergency management functions of the city, of the department and the city, and reassign that position back to another need that the chief may have, and then add 1 non-sworn position to the community engagement unit, and reassigning that sworn position in the community engagement unit back to where the chief and deputy chief may need. And the last one is quality control, number 8. And the key findings here is that the current workloads do not provide adequate time for department leaders or supervisors to engage in proactive quality control measures. We just talked about the demands of the chief, and this goes with the entire administrative team of the department. And a recommendation here is to add 1 non-sworn data analyst position to support the department leadership in developing strategy, managing risk, and again, operating under the philosophy of what's monitored is managed, and if you don't know, you don't know. So providing the tools that the chief and the leadership team need to make sure that they understand what's under all of the rocks that haven't been flipped over yet. And with that, I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity. Rob and I have had a really good time. This has been a fun project for us. It's been a lot of work, but it's been fun work, and we've really enjoyed it, and we've really gotten to know the city of Burnsville and the police department, and we'd love to continue to help in any way we possibly can moving forward. So, any questions?
Council members, questions?
I'm looking forward to reading this whole report. It was a good presentation, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
As most people know, public safety is pretty high on the list here at the council, and having a path to go, I think, is very important for us to understand what that path is, so we can make proper decisions.
Great.
So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Councilmember.
I'm glad that you did this and you saw, because you have sat in the seat of a chief and you see how we do things differently here. So I also want to commend our chief, because you just said something about having a non-sworn officer to help out with the areas of officer wellness and so forth. Chief, didn't we have one of our officers suffer a medical? And what did you do? Why don't you tell him? Because I came to know about this simply because I go to the events that police do, and I saw service. And so please tell everybody, because she's ahead of you again.
Well, it's teamwork, but yes, so we did have an officer that was injured, was gonna be, unable to continue to work as a police officer, but was really a wealth of knowledge in wellness and peer support, and, ingrained in our culture that way. And so we were able to transition him into a wellness coordinator position, so a non-sworn position, to still, again, have that experience, that relationship, those expertise, and then be able to continue that bond with our folks here and to bring and onboard our new people in the same way. So, very important to us.
And it is, because here's the thing, I go to the event, and he doesn't have all of the paraphernalia that he used to. I said, so what's going on here? And then he told me, and that he had a new position, and so she's doing all of that. I also like the fact that in your outward focus to the community, that in reading the report, I read the report, that you said that the residents of Burnsville feel that the officers treat them with respect.
Yes.
That's my experience as well, but it's good to read a report and to see those kinds of comments that you gleaned out of that, and that they believe that the officers were fair and equitable in the way that they were treated. They may not have liked the outcome, but they were treated with respect. So it's great, and I enjoyed reading the report, and as I read it, I thought, well, she's ahead of you here. She's ahead of you here.
That doesn't
And-
surprise me, Mayor.
Yeah, so also, Bill Perrin was the lead back then, 25 years ago, working with Dumoulin, and he's still alive, and I will tell him about this follow-up and how all of this is connected back to all of that. And so it's good to read the background, and I'm proud of our police chief and our leadership team and each and every officer and the members of the Burnsville PD for the work that they do. And Holly's also a star. Did you talk to Holly? I mean, she
Crime
collects all of
analyst.
our data,
Crime
Oh,
analyst,
yeah,
Holly.
yes, Rob.
Mhm.
Rob did, yes.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you think?
Rockstar fits, yes. Very appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna find something else, Holly can dig it up.
She has the skills, the requisite knowledge, and yes, and I know it's that if she were to partner with another person, the amount of data that they could provide the department and the chief to help the department create quick strategy and make nimble moves, I think is unlimited because
Yeah.
of what she brings to the department.
And our investigators, I can tell you that they're like bulldogs on a case. And a case may be a year old, but recently you gave us a report and the findings of that, and because of the work of our investigators, they put that person in jail.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Our chief's heard me ask this question a few times, but I'm just wondering from your perspective, working with other departments across the state, specifically looking at recruitment, have you seen other departments, I guess as of recently, try to incorporate some type of program within schools as a feeder into local departments where you've got, individuals living in a community and then coming into policing that community, whether they live here or not is irrelevant, but they're now, familiar with the area at a very intimate level. Again, Tanya's heard me mention this before, but when I was in high school 20 years ago, there was a police explorers program. I think there was 8 or 9 of us, and I might have been the only one that didn't end up taking a career in law enforcement. But it was very successful, from what I could gather, as far as feeding individuals into a career for law enforcement. I'm just curious if you guys have seen any of that recently in other communities.
Councilmember, thank you for the question. Yes, the Explorer program is a very potentially great program to explore and continue to build the capacity to do that. I do know that the numbers for explorers across the state have also suffered with, with getting some of these young people involved in public service. The great thing is when you do get them in there, they already have that heart for service. They want to get involved very early. One program that we're very proud of in St. Paul is the Law Enforcement Career Path Academy. We hired young adults if you're 18 years old. Specifically, we targeted people who have family challenges where they simply couldn't afford college. And with a 2-year degree, it can be somewhat manageable financially to, over a 3-year period, put them through a 2-year degree at the same time working for the city. So they're earning a livable wage while getting their school paid for, and they really feel a deep commitment to the city once they graduate and they can qualify to become a police officer in that city. So there's all of the feeder programs take different and unique looks. And I know that in talking with your chief, she continues to explore all the potential angles to make sure you're as creative as possible.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, so, as you mentioned, different versions of feeder programs. We have a community service officer program.
Yeah.
So, and also we require a 4-year degree,
Yeah.
which is different than many
Yeah.
agencies across the state. And so as we bring them into that program at young ages, when they are, starting their careers in terms of going to school for law enforcement or some interest in that, we bring them on, and then they get to learn about us, learn about the geography, learn about how to connect with the community. And then, we are looking at how can we bolster that program? How do we add to that program, which we're looking at doing, next year, adding more ability to bring on CSOs to kind of get that recruitment pipeline coming through. So I would say there's opportunity there to continue to work in that area with our community service officers. And we did have an Explorer, we had the Explorer program back many
And
years
that was
ago.
cut during the recession.
And that was cut.
But
Yeah.
with what we have, with what the chief and our leadership team have done with the CSO, we also have a tuition reimbursement because we have a 4-year degree rather than the 2.
Right, yep,
And
that's right.
And I think if you look at our leadership team, I think all of them have master's degree.
They do work towards that, yep.
Yeah,
Majority of
yeah.
them.
Not only do they have 4-year degrees, they have master's degrees. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Workman, to Chief Schwartz's point as well. Chief, percentage-wise, approximately how many of our officers were once CSOs?
Approximately about half, so we're very close to half, and now that we're right around that point. So we have, we'll have 83 sworn officers now, and there's somewhere around 39 that are, have been CSOs.
Yeah.
And so they take little bit longer to get them in the group because, it takes a little bit longer for them to get the degree, but, we've all been very happy. I started as a CSO, so it's been a great opportunity for me, so.
Certainly been successful for us
Yeah.
and recognized by the fact that the proposed budget in front of you for this year, I know we're talking about 2024 right now, but into 2024, we did add a couple of FTEs to the police department's complement to add to that CSO complement to allow us the ability to train up and ultimately promote into the officer ranks. So we're being very intentional about using past success to to inform how we move into the future.
And I think we had, what did we have, about 9 or so officers that went to Burnsville High School, so that come from Burnsville High School into.
Yeah. Steve Stoley?
Part of your group?
Yeah,
I know many of them.
yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your good work.
Thank you, Mayor.
We appreciate all that you've done and for coming back and reporting on that. And Chief and Deputy Chief, so nice to say that. Thank you for all the work that you all do. And, you know, you're always doing things over and above. And before the report happened, when I read that, I said, well, she's ahead of you. Yeah, so thank you. And thank you for everything that you do. Please extend our sincere appreciation to our rank and file and everybody for the work that you do to keep Burnsville safe. Thank you. And thank you for helping us.
Thank you again, Mayor, Council. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor, just one item as we move forward from the study. Certainly a thank you to Todd and his team. It's been an incredible privilege to work with them. Oftentimes we hire consultants wanting to realize a result where they really understand what we mean when we say uniquely Burnsville. And I will say with confidence that Todd and his team are by far at the leading edge of really understanding both who we are, most importantly, and what we were looking to accomplish here. So very much appreciate that. I've mentioned this before. We've talked a little bit in the budget process about the reality kind of moving forward. Todd had mentioned that there was a total recommendation of 20 FTEs, 15 of those being patrol. If you recall, the organizational analysis currently includes 11 and a half FTEs. Allocated to the police department, so that leaves a delta of 8.5 FTEs between what the current organizational analysis calls for and what this study suggests that we need to implement over a 5-year period of time. So next steps, if you're agreeable to it, I'd like to work with our team, Tanya, myself, our finance team, and the leadership team more broadly to talk about informing what an updated organizational analysis might look like to effectively use FTEs across the organization, and to also come back to you and talk about potential impacts of fully realizing the recommendations of this report. If you recall, we have a planned organizational analysis presentation discussion with you in your November work session. I'd like to work towards overlaying the recommendations of this study and integrating them into the organizational analysis. So that would be my plan.
This is for looking forward.
Yes.
Not for this budget year.
Correct,
but,
Mayor.
yeah,
So
just want to make sure that everybody is clear.
that would be my plan, looking beyond the 2024 budget to inform future financial management plans and future budget discussions. So plenty of time to do that as we look to integrate.
Okay, yeah, Councilmember Keeley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you. We brought in some really great experts, and I'm so glad that you were part of this and giving us this direction. I think it's worth commenting to the general public that COVID-19 changed more than just where we work. For policing, for public safety, it has been a very dramatic shift and change. And this study, had COVID-19 not happened, might look a little different. The stress, the challenges.
Well, it's not just COVID-19, it was also what happened down in Minneapolis with the Floyd incident. All of that were all on top of each other.
I was getting to that,
Oh.
but thank you. I wanted to just do them one at a time because they are separate, but they had ended up happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a great point. It is to the folks that have lived here a long time and are wondering why do we need 15, 20 more law enforcement officers? Why 15 more patrolmen and women? Just the whole dynamics of policing has changed. That's why this study is so important to be done now, and be able to position ourselves to try and find a way to hire and fill these positions. Last year, in the budget for this year, we authorized 8 new officers. Correct me if I'm wrong, how many have we actually hired out of the 8 goal?
3,
Yeah.
4 technically. One more coming on board next week.
All right.
Halfway there.
Halfway.
It's September. We only have a few months left in the year, and it's been a real challenge for Chief Schwartz to hire the 8. We would have preferred to be able to have 8 on board by the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
But in reality, as former Chief Axel pointed out, it's a different world today. So we may be talking about wanting to go to 15 or 20 over time. It may take a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the job, and this goes to the fire department, paramedic folks too. It's dramatically different today than ever before. Chief Jungman may have black and white data on call volume that drives his, but there's also that aspect of what firefighters and paramedics are exposed to and the impact, the long-term impact on their health. And so Fire Station 1 became suddenly an incredibly important step in protecting the health of our firefighters, and we need to do that to another one. On the police side, we need to have more staff. We need to have more officers being able to address today's challenges, because what we used to operate on was a different world, with 75 sworn officers for how many years?
A long
decade
time,
or
but
so.
before that, we had less. We were like at 50, right? Back then
Before-
in the 90s, and that's why we had that last group of people doing the police master plan, doing the work that like the Extel group did.
So-
And Bill Perrin, who's still alive, I'm going to call him and tell him about all of
And
this.
the bottom line of my point is, we used to be able to say, well, how many law enforcement officers per 1,000 people
Yeah,
in the population?
that's right.
That's no longer
The measure.
an adequate or a sufficient measure with all the dynamics that are now at play today. And so anyway, I'm glad that we did this. I fully support doing what we need to do, because at the core, and we all know this, certainly on this council and prior councils, at the core of why people would choose to move here is a healthy, safe community. And those folks are the people in charge of making sure that that number one priority is maintained and kept, and that we don't become any of the other communities who have really fallen apart with law enforcement departures and struggles and crime rising and those other issues. We're not gonna let that happen in Burnsville, and the way we do that is support our law enforcement personnel.
Thank you for bringing that up, because one of the things that I talked about at the leadership meeting was how we do things different here in Burnsville because of the behavioral health unit, but we also now, because of the close relationship between our chiefs, our police chief and our fire chief, we now have because all of our firefighters are also paramedics, certified paramedics. So we now have, when they go out on behavioral health calls, we have a paramedic there, because there are medical issues that are part of that call. So it's not just mental health, it is also about the medical aspect of that call. And what I found out is that we in Burnsville, throughout the whole country, there's probably less than 10 departments who do this kind of practice. And then the other thing is that we do have, Chief, I think we have a full-time embedded social worker, and we need another one, don't we?
Yep, we have a full-time crisis person, and we're wanting another one, yes,
Yeah.
another full-time person.
It's, when I talk about these things on a national level, we're doing things that are so far ahead of so many other police departments throughout the country, and this embeddedness of our paramedics with the behavioral health, I guess it's very rare.
Yeah, Mary, you have so much to be proud of. It's really been a pleasure to have a look behind that curtain that I talked about earlier today. there's a lot to be proud of in this city. You've got the playbook, you know what you're doing, you are ahead of the curve of most of the country, and it's really been fun to watch.
Yeah, and I thank Councilmember Keeley for bringing up all of that and the reasons why, because they're hearing, why do we need that many officers? And why do we need that many firefighters? Well, every month we get a report from our police chief and from our fire chief, and every time I look at that, it's a vertical line. Every month, it's a vertical line on all of their calls. It's not a flat, yeah, it's a vertical line. So, and thank you for bringing that up, because that's true on all of those points. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we really appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much. All right, the next item is our Community Builders Award nominations. Michelle Collins, our city clerk, is going to be presenting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, we did get 11 nominations for Community Builder Awards this year. I want to let you know that I did overlook the fact that Mr. Jack Cannelli did already receive an award back in 2019. And of course, he's so well known for his work with the Burnsville and Dakota County Historical Society. It had happened before, and I didn't catch it in time to note it in your packet, but I wanted to let you know, usually we don't give a duplicate award for the same exact.
So that we only have 10 rather than 11.
10, yes.
Yeah.
The information was all in your council packets. I stand for any questions you may have and seek your guidance on consideration of the nominations.
Council? I think so too, and, it's,
Oh, I didn't forget, but I remember Jack getting one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I missed it also, but then, I didn't see it until the list came up. And, but no, you're right.
You see his name so much
Members of the council, if there's no objection, I'd like for us to consider all 10.
Yep.
Okay.
Consensus.
Is that okay? Okay. Excellent. We'll go to roundtable then. And there's, I think, is city approach to PUD zoning and guidelines, is that a staff?
No, Madam Mayor, that was Councilmember Gustafson, excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm bringing this up as we all recall our petting zoo discussion we had here a few weeks ago. And I asked the question about the underlying zoning of the PUD at the Burnsville Center. And with the underlying zoning, the petting zoo was allowed. But because it's a PUD, and it wasn't in their PUD, they had to come in to get another PUD update. And I started thinking is why, because I build something or someone builds something in an area, we give them a PUD, should they lose the underlying zoning that's there? And my thought is that
They don't.
they do. If that's not listed in the PUD, they have to come in and do it. And so my thought is we should talk, I'd like to have us a discussion about how we handle PUDs. So when it happens, they don't lose that underlying zoning that's within the district itself. Because I think it's kind of almost a penalty they get a PUD, which is allowing them to do something they want to do, but then they lose what their next door neighbor has in the same neighborhood because of the zoning.
Okay, so members of the council, what you're asking is that we have a work session.
A work session to talk about it, and
yes.
maybe Jeff could fill us in on what staff goes through with some of this as well.
Yeah, and then just to educate all of us on all of the land use and zoning and the ordinance and how it's all governed. And that might be a good thing for the planning commission to be a part of when you do that. Council members, are you in favor of having a work session on?
Special task force.
Well, I'd like to hear from Jeff.
No, all we're gonna do is to educate us on the law.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah,
P-
I think that's appropriate, yeah,
yeah.
I do.
I do too. And also, it's a good refresher to get to all of that, the underlying zoning, PUDs and the conditional use permits and all of that. So there's unanimous to have a work session on this, and then have the
Madam Mayor, I
planning
would like to
commission.
hear from Jeff a little bit as well.
Well, of
is
course,
what
I
our
will
staff
get
goes
there,
through.
but
Okay.
what I'm just
No,
saying.
not allowed.
So that we're,
No.
so I'm
No,
just saying
that's
that
really
that's what
gotcha.
we're asking for, is
Yeah,
a work session.
we're just having to have a work session
Yeah,
on
yeah.
how we handle our PUDs in the city.
So Jeff, I mean, this is stuff you're good at.
Certainly, Mayor, Council, thank you. We're happy if there's consensus of the council to come back and have a deeper dive on our planned unit development process. We're happy to facilitate and provide some of the background and context. I've learned in my time in Burnsville, it's complicated. I think we have, well, I know we have a significant number of planned unit developments in Burnsville.
We have been the foster child of PUDs all over.
Yes.
It's very flexible.
We're
It's
a PUD
flexi-
community.
The PUD is a flexible tool.
It is.
It's a very, it's a very flexible tool to have, and it's very good. But the thing is, what you're addressing is that what happens to the
Underlying zoning, why would they lose that
Yeah.
right, is what I'm asking.
And so we can get to that, and an ordinance can fix that, Councilmember.
I assume that, that's why I brought it up, so we could talk
So
about it.
we can make that a fix with an ordinance amendment, and Jeff is going to tell us how to do that.
Yeah, well, yes, well, certainly, yes, we certainly will come back with some options of addressing this issue. Agreed, and, Burnsville has used the planned unit development extensively to allow flexibility in development and to custom kind of development regulations around proposals and whatnot. I think one of the challenges that we've absolutely had is because PUDs then go on to kind of be the living zoning district for that property in kind of simplistic terms, they are much more challenging to then administer on an ongoing basis. And so I think that's an opportunity to bring forth kind of some of the challenges that future planned unit developments have in reflecting changes that are in our ordinance that aren't then reflected in our planned unit
And an
development.
ordinance can fix that when Jeff comes back.
I've heard that rumor.
So we need that. And I think it'll be great to also, that'll educate the planning commission as well. Okay,
Thank you, council.
yeah. City manager, staff has the direction.
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Okay, that's the only item that was on the round table, and now reports. Councilmember Keeley, you have, you go last?
Yeah, thank you. I'll go first.
Okay,
My report is.
because I always go to you guys first, and you always look at me, so I thought, okay, I'll go over here, so.
Well, maybe they can come up with something this time.
Well, our last,
Whoa, that was a shot across the bow.
well, you have to have something worth to talk about.
We gotta
you know,
give
so-
you your 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Well, there's a
He's
comeback.
only gonna take 12 now. Experience Burnsville, we had our retreat here last month, and I don't know if anyone was aware of this, and maybe I missed it, but the Fairfield and the Hampton has sold. And what I found out at our last meeting, they're going to remodel both those hotels, and they're taking it down to the studs in both of those hotels. So they're totally remodeling the inside and creating suites and all that, so I
So they're
think at
gutting
the end of the day,
inside. They're gutting the
at the end of the
inside.
day, I think we're gonna have there's some nice hotels being built over there.
Who bought it?
I don't know the group that bought it, but it got discussed, so. But it was news to me, and I didn't know if the rest of the council was aware of the fact that it's a total remodel. A little similar to what actually Best Western did with some of their floors over there. I think they're gonna be turning a lot of them into suites and that to attract more of the business traveler. And of course, as I reported last month, our occupancy is up in Burnsville, so it's coming back. And that trend seems to be holding, so we're happy about that.
Yeah, Jenny reported that because you remember that as we were going through that was, and we get a little bit of that hospitality because it goes directly to Experience Burnsville, and we get 8%? 5. Oh, okay.
Keep going.
Okay,
That's my report.
good.
One last thing, Art and All That Jazz was very hot.
Oh, my God, was that hot.
You guys had great weather. I would have killed for your weather.
It was a little chilly on Wednesday, but that's not a record.
I would have taken that, trust me. People will put on a coat. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
You can't escape the heat of the sun.
Yeah. Okay, Vince?
Improving fiscal futures is essentially just recapping legislation and then offering up communities to work on new things, nothing of serious note. And that fire muster, Burnsville Festival was this last weekend. Prior to this year, I would have told you 2021 was probably our busiest year, most people, biggest crowds, but I believe we knocked that out of the park this weekend. The whole place was buzzing. Dan will probably talk about this a little bit more, but I was just overwhelmed with joy and how busy it was and how much fun people were having, and how few fires there were to put out. Minus a couple Wi-Fi things that Tom Venables helped immediately with our amazing IT staff. Everything ran smoothly. But it was a great weekend, and I anticipate that we'll repeat next year. So.
Okay. Kara?
Nothing stunning.
Okay.
Nothing stunning.
No.
That's a high bar, let's see.
What Kara is saying
Yeah,
is
beat
that
one, Dan.
nothing has changed in the discussions in her
No, I mean, no.
Yeah, Dan?
I have no excitement.
Well, the Burnsville Festival was a raving success. We had cold weather on Wednesday, but we still had a really great crowd. They were, I think, treated to the best block party on the plaza ever, and we'll repeat that next year and hope for maybe a little less 60 and cloudy and windy. Day two, the craft beer tasting and a car show. I'm waiting for numbers from 360, but I would suspect that it was at least 25% or more larger than last year. Crowds were great. Harpo was very, very happy. I think he had 15 craft breweries there, and everyone was having a great time, and weather was a little bit better that night, and people are enjoying old school, having music at the craft beer tasting. Friday night's Johnny Home Band, we had a new opener, the Dead Century. I got an email from someone saying, my husband and my family, my kids went on Friday. We go for Johnny Home. Love him, been following him for a long, long time, like many people have for 50 years, over 50 years, and said they thoroughly enjoyed the opening band, would love to see them come back, and the kids had an absolute blast. I heard lines at the rides for the carnival were exceptionally long on Saturday, and I think on Friday too, but more so on Saturday. In 2021, there were 3 food trucks, an ice cream truck, and the Boy Scouts, so 4 food trucks and an ice cream truck, plus the fair food. We had 11 last year, and we had 2 run out of food before they got to the end of Saturday night. We had 15 this year, and every one of them was loving it and complimenting and saying they were having a great festival. The festival, the carnival also brought additional food trucks. So compared to 2021, where the crowd was great, very much a rebound from 2020. Every county festival, every city festival reported record crowds, bigger than anything they'd ever seen. We had a lack of food trucks and food offering. With substantially bigger crowds, or at least bigger crowds this year, we had an immense amount of additional food trucks, and everybody was enjoying a great revenue night, both Friday and Saturday. So we are very pleased. Overall, fundraising was very strong. Our revenues from beverages set a new record, and I can't wait till I dig into the numbers and we get the final financial report and are able to then give back to all the nonprofit groups, which I think will be 18 this year, up from 16 last year. So for the general public, if they don't know, this is a 501c3 fundraiser. It is not a city event. It's a city legacy event, but the city does not put this on. But without the city, we couldn't put it on because the city is our greatest partner, providing all the public safety and public works, streets, and tremendous amount of support. For example, when volunteers don't show up, thank goodness there were lots of city employees around, and they pitched in and filled in those vacancies and helped us make it happen. And so that's just the challenge. But as a 501c3 nonprofit that has a annual festival that raises money to turn around and give it back to local area nonprofits, this year was a great year. And we were blessed with great weather and tremendous amount of volunteers. I think the total number of slots we fill it's over 300. And we have some people double up on that, but fantastic event. And Vince and I did a lot of work together on setting up POS and Wi-Fi hotspots and, debugging and shifting. And so we did have two things that we're going to work on our download dinner. We tried a new thing with some trash cans that didn't work out so good. So we're going to go back to the barrels and not have a giant dumpster sitting with a lot of garbage in it, right in the center of everything. And bathrooms. We're going to have more porta potties. We added 5 more, but we also spread them around so that there wasn't, they weren't all in the center where if you were all the way over in the Zombie Garage Zone Youth Center or all the way on the other side, you had to go to the center to go to the restroom. So we spread them out, added 5 more, and the core in the middle were overwhelmed. So we're going to add more next year to make sure that we have adequate restrooms. And we're also going to ensure that they're serviced in the middle of the day or late afternoon on Saturday, because even though they were serviced first thing Saturday morning, they didn't make it the whole day, and it was not the quality that we want. So for our guest experience, we're going to make improvements in both of those areas. And for the rest of it, we have just tons of compliments left and right. So trash and bathrooms, that's what we got to work on.
All things considered, those are
Yeah.
easy solutions.
Yep. From a transportation standpoint, I-35 is this Wednesday. A lot of these have been off for the summer. Of course, the Metro Cities Transportation and General Government
Just
is.
to go back to the
Yes,
festival,
yeah.
the one other thing that, I don't know if you got that email or if it was part of,
Yep.
they didn't see any signage of where they can catch the bus to come up here or all of that. So more signage for transportation.
Unfortunately, that was another area that we fell flat. We have a lot of signage. It didn't get out. And it didn't get out.
It didn't get out.
It didn't get out where it was supposed to go. 2 4x8 signs were missing from the Burnsville Transit Center. And many of the signs that we repeat over and over along 13 in both directions and Nicollet to get people to know that got spread around the city. And so it was execution. Last year it was good. This year it was not good. So we're going to work on that with our friends and the scouts who help us put those out. So transportation wise, well, we do have a free bus. We make it very obvious. We try very hard to advertise the heck out of the fact that we have a free bus, a 40-foot, handicap accessible, air conditioned, comfortable seat, very comfortable seat, buses that just constantly go from the transit station to the drop off at the ice center rink, which is right next to the food and the stage and the beverages and all the action. And so we still are trying to grow that, so we incent folks with a $2 off drink coupon, good at any of the beer or the new Pepsi beverage stations that we have, and the Scouts. And I did witness this year, last year on Saturday, I saw that a few times. This year I saw full buses unloading during the peak time. They kept coming off. I went, oh boy, I think every seat on that bus was taken. So I think we're going to see numbers from MBTA jump, which we want, but we're still not seeing, still see a lot of people walking. They're parking who knows how far away and walking through, several blocks to get there. We'd really like everybody to take advantage of that bus. After the fireworks, I announced on stage that we would have 2 buses ready to go as soon as the fire department cleared the drop zone, so they could drive down 134th. We had at least 2 bus loads of people waiting, so that was also a sign that it was getting a lot of use. And they offered up a 3rd bus if needed. And I was on the phone with our executive director of MBTA, Luther, texting back and forth, almost, I was prepping him, like, all right, at 10 o'clock, we're gonna have a big wave of folks that are leaving after the fireworks. And then at 11 o'clock, we're gonna have a huge wave, so please bring in extra bus if you can. So he was ready and waiting to help us. So anyway, that rolls into MBTA. We're still seeing a lot of growth in our ridership. The attention on downtown, there's been some conversation from the governor and some others for folks like Target to start calling people back to work. There's a little push now that we're 3 years after the pandemic, like, okay, what is the wait? I did find it interesting that Governor Walz was dropping hints that he would like Target to call him back, and he's allowing all the state agencies to continue to work remote. So would like to see him do the same thing for the state employees and pull them back. But the state has been reducing building sizes everywhere, closing regional ones outside the network, the metro area. And so it seems to me like they're accepting the new normal as the way it is today and not really planning on calling people back to work. And we'll see what the private sector does. But we continually incrementally increase that express service. But it's still, for all practical purposes, it's 50% of what it was in 2019. And how much of that 50% that is currently down ever recovers, nobody really knows. But 50% seems to be sort of the, where it's sort of landed and stuck. So we'll see. But suburb to suburb continues to grow like crazy. We're doing another test deal on County Road 42. And of course, our growth, our rocket growth is still MBTA Connect. And I mentioned last month, I think we ordered 6 more buses, plus 6 more on the tail of that. And it continues to be outstripping demand. So our goal is to add more buses, more drivers, to be able to reduce the wait time. Because right now it can be 30 minutes, and some worst case scenarios, it can be an hour. And that's unacceptable to our service level. So we're just leaning into that more and more. State Fair, record number. We blew past, it was the largest number of riders for the State Fair for MBTA. A lot of complaints from Met Transit riders about the number of buses, so much so that there's a legislator that is proposing a bill that is going to require more buses. And so I'm hoping that they'll require to fund that mandate with some sort of funding. It's unrealistic to say you're not gonna let anybody drive and that everybody has to be 100% transit. That's a bit ridiculous, but the goal of putting more attention and spotlight and funding on the fare bus, we would love to see that. From an MBTA standpoint, we would welcome more funding to allow us to put more buses and more drivers and offer that service. So it's more frequent. We do 1 hour in the non-peak days and 30 minutes and up to 15 minutes on the weekend. We would love to go to every 30 minutes during the day in the sort of non-peak days. Right now it's once an hour, and it's kind of frustrating, when you get to the station and then you realize, oops, I just missed one 10 minutes ago, so now I got a 50-minute wait before another one comes. So working on more State Fair. The other big one was Renaissance Festival. It's now experiencing its first attempt at making more transit options and getting more buses to relieve the traffic in Scott County and on the highway there, so 169 South. So a lot of work to do there, but we're learning a lot this year. We're getting there. A lot of work on it. All the stuff that's going on, I-35 bridges and all kinds of work and the funding that we're trying to go after. So next legislative session will be very interesting to try and continue to get more funding. I think
Dan, can I ask you a
that's it.
question?
Yes.
Have you guys talked about how the Metropolitan Transit strike might affect Minnesota Valley?
Not yet.
No.
That kind of sprang up. I don't think anyone expected that strike
It
vote
surprised me when I saw it.
go the way it's going, because Met Transit has attempted to increase wages and benefits and try and get to where they could maybe avoid this strike, but it sounds like that may not happen. Or, I mean, strike may happen, which is going to cause a massive disruption in the metro area. And there may be some asks of the suburban transit providers that are not in that particular union group to help
Yeah.
in any way we can.
The last time that happened, we did so well because we are not part of that system.
Right.
So our constituents didn't miss a beat, and that was before the recession when that happened. So my guess is that our people will not have, it's not going to affect us because we're not in their system.
Yep. It is a jolt to the system because we go into
Yeah.
downtown, so more people.
It'll affect Lakeville, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
by the
And
way,
then there will be a flood to us.
yes. Yeah,
That's,
our-
that's.
That's the
that
stuff I'm thinking about, like,
Yeah.
okay. how's that
Burnsville
gonna
Transit
deal with that?
Station will get
More
a lot
riders.
busier when it happens.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to note is Orange Line at Burnsville gets a lot of complaints, myself included, that there's just not enough ridership there, and we're seeing folks get off that, just go to the corners and start panhandling. I have traveled that route by car, following the buses and watching the bus stops, and Met Transit had reported to us that they see significantly higher ridership, essentially north of the river into downtown. So as you get into Hennepin County, that Orange Line bus gets a lot fuller. And I witnessed a couple that were literally almost 100% full. And they weren't the two-part, I'm not sure what they call those now, I can't remember, the accordion two-part, which, living in LA, that's all I ever saw out there. But the one, it seems like the ridership south of the river, it just falls off. Everybody gets off in Richfield. And
Yeah,
and it's-
Bloomington over at the.
Yeah, in
Best Buy.
Bloomington, and it just isn't much demand in our area yet to see that.
I have
those
seen a few
buses
more
full.
riders at some of the stops here lately.
Yeah.
Not crowds, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing people get on and off.
Yes.
Get on the buses out here now.
Other than the driver, like, we're actually
Yeah.
seeing some riders, right?
Yeah.
And we are. And we're working very closely with Met Transit and Met Transit representation and just trying to, because MBTA operates Orange Line Connect bus lines to bring people to the Orange Line station. So we work very closely together, probably better than in a long time, very much more collaboratively. So
All right.
that's it.
Okay, very good. Hugo and I, with the Metro Cities, our metropolitan agency's work is done. We had 2 full meetings, but there weren't a lot of really substantive issues, right, Hugo? And then, so our work there is done. And of course, our partnership with Savage, we meet quarterly, so we don't have one of those. And I reported on the International Festival. We had a great festival as well, and it was busy and full. Thursday, I have my community foundations meeting, so that's all from me. Craig, you have anything?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, one thing, many of you mentioned our legacy events. I just want to take a minute to recognize staff. Councilmember Keeley put it very well, that we have a lot of great independent volunteer organizations that plan for and deliver really great events across our community. Those events are well supported by our team. Strong partnership has been a theme in and amongst our operations on the city side of things. And just want to take a minute to recognize the many hours across each of the legacy events that both your staff liaisons provide to you, as well as the teams that provide support, day of, preparation, all of those good things. Particularly recognize Hugo's work as he's kind of helped us to coordinate that across our operations. So thanks to the staff who put a lot of time and energy into making sure that we have really great, safe, fun events that are reflective of who we are as a community. So,
Very good. Okay, and if there's nothing else, we will stand adjourned by acclamation.